Alright, welcome to the show, everybody. We got a show for you. I'm Donald W. Moore. I started Get Off My Lawn Records a while back.
Yeah.
This is episode 31 of the Get Off My Lawn Records podcast.
Yes.
Now, why a record label needs a podcast, I don't know. I like the format. And it gives me a chance to say hi to everybody and remind you all that we're in a working production studio.
Yes, we are.
We're,
I don't have a living room right now.
No.
We have a recording space.
Yep, I've torn apart the living room for the next month, maybe.
Well, you've already had it torn apart for
About a month.
So
I've been, because we've been doing a lot of projects. We're getting a lot of stuff done this summer.
Yeah.
So the first project that we're working on is Millicent Hughes' album.
yes.
We're about 30% of the way done now. We've been at that in earnest for the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
The next one we're working on is always Freeform Fridays, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't subscribed to the Jazz Destroyers, please subscribe to the Jazz Destroyers. We're currently at 244 subscribers on this channel and 173 on the other.
Mm-hmm.
So, somebody out there is not aware of the other channel. On top of that, I'm working on the Sounds in Between videos.
Mm-hmm.
That's become a mess, trying to sort through all that and get that done. Because I captured everything when we captured it,
Mm-hmm.
but the automatic tools don't want to work for some reason. So I gotta do a lot of manual stuff. It's gonna take me a night of just sifting through it. Also, Jomo and the Possum Posse live at the Highball.
Did they get back to you with a...
He's got a mix he's pretty happy with. He's going to take another stab at it, but it's the right length. I can begin the process of synchronizing everything.
Okay.
And that's going to come to DVD and VHS. We're going to do a short run of VHS on that. Don't sound so excited.
I'm just trying to figure out how we'd logistically do that other than sending it out.
No. I have a machine.
You have a machine to do it?
I have a machine.
Okay.
And I have some tapes. So welcome to the show.
Yes.
How are we?
We were okay. We were tired.
Yeah.
Bit hot.
It is, because we have to turn the air conditioning off to do the show.
And for the recording.
And I think you're actually blown out this time. This is going to be funny.
Am I blown out? Am I too damn pale?
You might be. The white shirt's a bit... We'll find out. I'm seeing the camera at an angle.
Okay.
So, we're still taking a break from your section. Normally,
Yes.
section 2 is Carissa Explains It All. You're
Yes.
building an epic series of them right now.
Yes, and it's... I'll admit it's psychically difficult to go through some of this. Because right now I'm going through the diseases that we have vaccines for, and finding pictures, and...
Yeah.
A lot of these pictures are of little kids. And it's somewhat painful to realize that, especially when they're white kids.
Ouch. I mean...
You're realizing these are probably more privileged people who had access to vaccines and chose not to, and now these are their kids, because these are recent pictures. These aren't from the 70s or something.
Yeah.
So, realizing that they actually let their kids suffer like that, so it's kind of painful.
Let's get your damn kids vaccinated. Alright, so then, once we get done with that, we'll move on to our section 3. We do 2 deep thoughts every week.
Mm-hmm.
The first one this week is going to be why I started Get Off My Lawn Records.
Yes.
In an era where music is free.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, we'll do why it's okay that music's free in this era in another episode. But
Okay.
we're going to talk about why I started it, because that came up last night on a gig. A guy said, why are record labels even needed anymore? And that guy needed a record label more than anybody. And I was able to explain to him why. So we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Then we'll do our shout-outs, announcements, our goals, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to talk about the different approaches to music production. There's a couple of different ways you can do it. Everybody's got their own style, and we're all kind of on a spectrum, right? There's no one way to do it. And what I found is knowing how all of the different how all the options you have to you, like how hands-on versus hands-off you want to be, it becomes very helpful, especially when you have a situation that's out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I'm all about getting out of the comfort zone. So we'll talk about that, the different styles of music production, and then finally it's everybody gets a trophy. And
I think the trophy's still in the other room.
From last week, yeah.
Yeah.
It's still on the shelf. I'll find something. Maybe we'll pass the fidget cube.
Okay.
Oh, the camera just shook because Regal Cat just laid on it.
Just flop down against it.
So, welcome to the show. Alright, let's move on. What's next? That's our...
That'd be section
3, right?
Mm-hmm. Why you started this cycle.
Why did I start Get Off My Lawn Records? Well, the artist doesn't need a record label anymore.
If the artist knows what they're doing, the artist does not need a record label anymore.
Yeah. We're not really trying to do that. What we're trying to do is be a filter for the audience. Because if I put it out, it's good.
Yeah, Don won't work on...
I don't work on
stuff.
junk. So if I'm putting it out, it means it's worth taking the time to see if it's something you want to purchase. So, and I put everything out in a way where you can check it out completely beforehand. And I work on the advertising and things. The major labels, they will still make you famous, which has all sorts of other benefits, like crowdsourcing. We talked about crowdsourcing on a previous, last week?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. On episode 30, we talked about crowdsourcing and why it's a myth, unless you're already famous. So a major label is perfect if that's your model, because you need 100,000 plus people to know who you are, to be interested in what you're doing, and then crowdsourcing becomes a very viable option for all of your needs. But until then, you're just, sitting on the digital corner with a hat asking for money. It's hard. So what we do, I've been at this now for 20 years. I think I first started doing some recording at about 20 years ago now.
Okay.
Definitely MIDI. I started writing with MIDI at about 20 years ago. And then maybe 18 years ago I moved over to audio from MIDI. So when you're thinking about why would I do this, it's a terrible idea, except I've got all this stuff and bands can't afford to pay for studio time.
Right.
They just can't. Most bands will drink it away, or they'll buy gear because they'll go into Guitar Center for strings, and then the guy tells them, oh yeah, you can record yourself, you just need to buy this. Oh, you want to be able to record 2 microphones at once? Okay, buy this and this. Oh, you want to be able to record drums? Buy this, and this. It becomes a perpetuating cycle until you get here. So over the years, I've built a highly equipped studio. I'm running, this is 16 in, I can run 24 channels at once. And I can run to tape, I can run to digital, I can do everything. I can just kind of, it's all here completely. And occasionally, like, we borrowed Charlie lent us his Rhodes for Millicent's album. That happens, right? But I'm not having to scrounge up microphones, mic stands, cables to run 16 channels. Some of these Freeform Fridays videos, we've used the whole board. So I can do a large session, 2 drummers, large. 2 drummers, a piano, the whole thing. Horns. I can do that here, which is incredibly freeing because I don't charge the people on the artist, like the family members on the artist, I don't charge for the recording time. This is my contribution to the process.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's why I get a cut, is for my contribution.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I started it, because I would rather take on 10 good projects a year
mm-hmm.
that I really truly believe in, work a day job, and make important music rather than what I was doing, which was taking anything I could get just because the rent on the space was due at the first of each month.
Yeah.
Right? I had to work on albums I had to work on albums I wouldn't even want to listen to. And I'm good, and I'm a pro, so when I did those albums, when I worked on those, I did the best I could, and I tried to realize the artist's vision, and
mm-hmm.
blah, 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 blah. But ultimately, I wasn't passionate about working on people's music by the hour.
Yeah.
And day rate or anything, these one-offs, and then my name's on it and it's gone. Like, I respect guys like Steve Albini who do that, and they do it at such a high volume. I think he's worked on over 2,000 albums now.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't remember every album that he's made.
Right.
I kind of like remembering each one.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm able to find the very promising stuff, the important stuff that ultimately needs to be recorded properly, because otherwise most musicians, they have an iPhone, GarageBand.
Sure.
It'll get done, but then they're going to post it on whatever, and you're going to pass it over because it's not sufficiently high quality. So that's why I started the label, so I could help the audience cut through some of the noise, because I'm out looking for new stuff, cut through the noise, kind of curate a catalog for you,
mm-hmm.
and then also help some musicians that don't necessarily have the means to record themselves properly.
Yeah.
And make very good records that way. And then hopefully we all get filthy, stinking rich.
Sure, that's the dream.
But I mean, we're just trying to sell albums at $10 a piece. We just want to get. I'd rather 1 million people buy a $10 album than try to sell 10 people a $1 million thing.
Yeah.
But that requires a certain degree of fame, and we have 244 subscribers. So really, if you're watching and you haven't subscribed, hit subscribe. Right? We do a lot of this kind of stuff. We talk about how I run the model.
Mm-hmm.
And I do go into some production stuff. We're going to do production in the next Deep Thought. And then if I have it and somebody has a question on the gear, I'm always happy to answer. I would like to see our comment section become a forum. So if you have music production questions, or questions about the music industry, because we've both been in the industry now for like 15 years, 10 years.
In my case, approaching 20, yeah.
Yeah, so we've got a perspective on it, and we're just trying to help you guys, the next generation, because we're kind of established. We've got our artists we like to work with. I'm always looking for new stuff, but I can only take on 10 projects a year. I can't just release everything. Though that may change. We may open up the manufacturing to others.
Maybe.
But we'll look into that. Right now we're focusing on building a good catalog that no matter what, it's going to be good. Yeah. Right? So hit subscribe, hit like, leave a comment, and let's move on. What's next?
Section 4.
Oh, our announcements.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody watches these when I put them up as individual clips, so I've just moved them only to our full show, but this is really our shout-outs, right?
Yeah. So,
who are you shouting out this week?
Oh, well, this week I am shouting out the cats. Because,
they've been spending a lot of time with you.
They have been spending a lot of time with me. They've been very, very cuddly with me this week, and
You need the cuddles?
I don't know if I need the cuddles, but it feels nice to have the cuddles.
Sure. Yeah, because you basically get relegated, unless you're running the board like you will be tonight.
Yeah.
you tend to get relegated.
Yeah, because, I can't be doing dishes or laundry or banging around while we're trying to record downstairs.
Right.
And, even walking across the floor up here, so there's a couple squeaky floorboards or something occasionally, and you don't want to deal with that.
But you deal with it when you have to. We make it work.
Sure. But, I try to stay, in our bedroom, which is actually over the garage, so it's not, me walking around isn't being really heard.
Yeah.
Where we're tracking, so.
Yeah. And we're all really good about not flushing until we're between takes.
Yes.
That's always kind of funny in a studio. It's like, no, don't do it.
Yeah, particularly here, because the way it's set up, the bathrooms are all kind of basically centered around
A single pipe.
actually around this room.
Yeah.
One's directly underneath, one's against that wall, and the other's against that wall. So it's, it gets very
I hear
noisy.
everything.
I tried to get you into the other room for the studio, and you just didn't want it. It was the same size.
Same size, but the closet was the closet was asymmetrical.
Yeah.
I wanted the symmetry. I wanted some symmetry in here.
Yeah.
So shout out to the cats.
Yeah.
And shout out to Millicent. She's been driving up here.
Yep.
Working really hard. And artists that work with me work hard. We work fast. I drop the guys that are not so interested in working hard and finishing a result, I drop because nope.
Yeah, we don't have time for that.
Nope. Ain't nobody got time for that. Including our audience.
Except apparently them.
Yeah. So shout out to Josh, who's sleeping in the other room between sessions. We did a session this morning, and we're gonna do a Freeform Friday session after this.
And he worked overnight.
And he worked
at his
overnight.
day job.
So it's like, yeah, I crashed in the spare room. And that's kind of what life in a recording studio can be like.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's also why I'm the hippie neighbor. I didn't know I was the hippie.
I didn't know.
I guess it makes sense.
Neighbors.
I'm kind of the hippie. But,
just because I don't manicure my flower beds. Well, I don't even have flower beds, so.
yeah. Shout out to Kevin Bloom, GG. GG.
Shout out to Mac.
Yeah. Shout out to Mac. And Griselda. And
Griselda and the kids.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a wild time we live in sometimes.
It really is.
Who else? Shout out to Jomo. He's working hard.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's playing 100 shows a year right now all over Texas. And he's got a kid. He's working hard. Shout out.
Mm-hmm.
And shout out to my mother, who did the Freeform Fridays, Best of Freeform Fridays 2016. It's available on iTunes, Amazon, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah.
she did a beautiful job on that cover.
Yep. Bandcamp's the best way. Bandcamp is really the only way you can get a physical copy right now is through Bandcamp.
Yeah.
So that's getoffmylawnrecords.bandcamp.com. Please tell a friend. Please tell a friend. Who else am I missing? Shout out Jake. Jake needs a shout out, though I don't know that he watches the show. And always a shout out to Michael.
Yes.
Michael gets a kick out of the shout outs. And then finally, to the Get Off My Lawn record, the whole family.
Yeah.
We have our Facebook group. You can join Get Off My Lawn Records family on Facebook. I don't post often because everybody gets a notification, so I'm really, really respectful of that. And I only post when it's something really cool. Like, we shared 15 seconds of isolated vocals of Millicent.
Did we?
Yeah. 12 part, 4-part harmony, triple track, 12 voices.
Oh, jeez.
Gorgeous and thick. Oh, it's very cool. So you can check that out there and join that group. And if you want to shout out, leave a comment below, right? Like, I want to know. Maybe we should shout out. Did I get many comments last week?
I don't know.
It's been a long time. Michael was the only one asking about the DVD collection. He's upset that we don't have Evil Dead.
I know we got Army of Darkness.
That's what I said. And my name is Bruce.
And I want to say we have one of the others, but I don't remember. I don't think we have the whole series.
Yeah, but
you know, that is also something we have been looking to rectify at some point. They're just sometimes hard to find unless you're willing to pay a ton of money, and I'm not.
I'm kind of I still get the occasional DVD.
Yeah, but you know,
but our collection's pretty much complete. Pretty much.
You know, we've gone from getting what were we getting, like 10 a month to like maybe 10 a year, if that. I'm not even sure that, honestly.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I'm tired. Freeform Friday is going to be awesome. This is a good state of mind to do Freeform Fridays. Kind of
Yes.
a little too tired to think.
Yep.
What's next?
Section...
Second deep thought. The different kinds of music production. So, on one end of the spectrum of producer is extremely hands-on.
Mhm.
And the other is extremely hands-off.
Sure.
David Geffen comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Almost an executive producer is the extremely hands-off kind. And then, so I'm too tired to name drop. George Martin, he had done the Beatles,
Mm-hmm.
extremely hands-on, did lots of orchestration, lots of arranging.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have guys like Brian Eno, who basically are artists, and then they bring in a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what hip-hop is. Because hip-hop producers, they'll make a beat, which is the complete musical bed that's just waiting for a vocal. And there's an art to it, because you gotta figure out how to make that sound good while still leaving room for the vocals, because a really good hip hop beat's gonna sound pretty sparse until you put the vocals on. And so that's in a lot of ways that's where a lot of the independent rappers fall apart, is that they wind up buying these beats that are extremely convoluted and lots of stuff in the mid range and very busy, and then they go to add to it, and there's not a lot of room left for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've had the backlash with like trap, where they basically just have nothing. It's just as sparse as can be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and to me, it's somewhere in between is where the magic happens. But it's
Sure.
really hard to hear the finished product before it's finished, unless you're one of the guys who are able to do that.
Yeah, and you are.
Unfortunately.
I'm very much not. You know, I'll hear your... I don't even know what to call that. The rough harmonies you did.
Oh, the mock-ups.
The mock-ups, yeah, and I'll just sit there and go, okay, that's just painful to listen to, and I have no idea what you're trying to do with it. So,
And then I do my work.
and you finish it, and you show me the finished product, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's my very special talent.
It really is.
If I was a pony, what would my cutie mark be? That's right, I'm making an MLP reference.
You are.
Because, you know, there is a Rainbow Dash. There's a couple of them.
There are a couple of them. I thought you had more than that, though.
I think I gave one away, maybe? No. I think there's 3 of them up there.
Okay.
I like Rainbow Dash. So, I like the concept of the Friendship is Magic. If you haven't seen it, it's well written.
Yes.
You just have to get past the fact that it's for little girls. So it's very...
There's a lot of pink.
There's a lot of pink. But the characters are excellent, very well written.
Yes.
And the storylines move at a very, like, not all over the place like some kids' shows could be.
Yeah.
And not at a snail's pace like, you know, Downton Abbey. I love Downton Abbey, by the way. But yeah, so that's generally your different kinds of production, right? You take there's a lot of guys in the middle, like your Lanois and Eric Serafin, who was on the show. He wrote a book called Zen and the Art of Production. He's very much in the middle. His whole thing is about building vibe and getting the artist comfortable, which is
very important.
It's a thing. You came down and you're like, why is there a stuffed animal on the floor? Don't ask. Don't judge.
No, I was just curious as to why you pulled it out.
It was appropriate for the session. So we needed a stuffed animal, so I pulled out a stuffed animal. So there's a lot of things to consider about it, but you ultimately have to decide, if you're doing hip-hop, you're really becoming a composer, and you need to find a way to make that sound attractive without a voice, even though the full result is what's supposed to sound attractive. So, Rot's a Ruck, I just don't know what to tell you. I like working with bands. The reason I like working with bands is if they're coachable, you can get some spectacular results.
Oh, yeah.
If they're not coachable, it's not going to work. That was a lesson that took me about 5 years to learn.
Yeah, no, there was one band that shall remain
It's
nameless.
been a couple.
Well, there's one in particular that shall remain nameless, mainly because I can't actually remember their name.
Was this before the house or after the house?
I think this was before the house. We'd heard them at a Battle of the Bands.
Yeah, I remember that.
And when I heard them live, I wasn't impressed. I was like, yeah, okay, another band doing Battle of the Bands. They're not that great, blah, blah, blah. Don was enamored.
Yeah, it was good.
Loved them. I was not hearing what he was hearing.
Yeah, there was potential.
He recorded, a couple tracks with them?
3. That's all I could stand. They were hard to work.
Yeah.
My problem has always been I have a vision, and I will make it sound spectacular.
It did. It sounded frickin' amazing.
Right.
I was absolutely astounded you got them to sound like that.
But you have to basically trust me to make it sound spectacular. And it may not be what you originally envisioned, right? But that's why I do the record label now, because it's like I do have to have some control. Yeah. Because that turned into just a constant argument.
Yeah.
It was always, I don't like that drum fill. Well, get out of my face, right? Like, get off my lawn, right? That's how it starts. So...
Yeah, and that's one of the things I've always found amazing about your production work is that you can turn a band that literally nobody else at that particular gig was paying attention to.
Sure.
And make them sound like Pink Floyd.
Yep.
It was absolutely astounding. It's like, and if an artist can get over themselves enough to trust Don, to let Don do his thing, then they will sound better than they ever imagined they could.
Yep.
But, when you're dealing with artist egos, that's also a thing.
But so I found through that experience, right, because I'm very hands-on, I start really nitpicking some minor things that, to me, are polishing up the edges of it, right? And yeah, if I'm met with resistance, there's no reason for me to work with that artist.
Right, you're just gonna, you're not gonna waste the energy.
But at the same time, I'm not quite the Motown factory. Right?
Sure.
Not quite. Like, I want the input. I want the feedback. There was no telling Berry Gordy, I didn't like the way my record came out. No. The record came out, period. Right? So I like the impact. I like the discussion, but ultimately somebody's going to make decisions. And the decisions have to be mine, and then the results are great. But yeah, unless you have the ability to see it see it complete before it's complete, yeah, you just have to be along for the ride and cool. So that's my advice. As a producer, I would say 80% of producing is having an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to have that's the hardest part is saying, how do I make this better? What can I do to improve this?
Mm-hmm.
And also, that opinion could be, this is perfect, don't change a thing.
Yeah.
And I go, and Sounds in Between, that was basically what it was. Except for Ever Tried, Ever Failed. I did some arranging on the end of that one.
Yeah. You know, but that was like one line.
Right.
You know, and
I try to, when everything's going to come together quickly, I try to stay the heck out of the way. If it's going to come to a screeching, grinding halt, it's going to be spectacular.
yeah.
Because that's kind of how because you can't, once you have to get that deep into the weeds, you're along for the ride.
Yeah.
And I don't really use MIDI
right
anymore. As I say, in a room full of keyboards and modules, I will finish this Volca album this summer. But I don't really use MIDI in my productions much anymore. Mm-hmm. For a whole host of reasons, but usually just because it's hard. Mm-hmm. Just setting everything up and messing with, like, I would rather drag a 90-pound Rhodes from South Austin to my house for a day
yes.
than get a perfect performance with MIDI and an emulated Rhodes, because the real Rhodes sounds better. Sure.
And, you know, at the same time, you're also not turning these musicians into something they're not.
No,
either.
That's true.
You know, he's not completely changing the sound. He's turning it into the best version it can be.
Yep. I build the house on the foundation.
Yes.
Yep. So if you're thinking about producing, right? If you're interested in the concept of producing music, you just have to remember that the producer's job is to make sure the album gets done.
Yes.
That's the producer's job. Everything else is all an opinion and approach. Mm-hmm. If you can find art, if you want to be the kind of producer where you're really into raising funds for artists who can get things done by themselves, and you spend your time raising the budget so that they can go use better and better equipment with better and better engineers, mm-hmm. That's one way of doing it.
It's a valid approach.
Yeah, Rick Rubin, he, for example, rehearses the heck out of his bands before he goes into the studio. Mm-hmm. Some producers have kind of their own studio bands they work with, mm-hmm. usually themselves. That's pretty common these days. Like, I'm playing bass on Millicent's record because somebody has to, mm-hmm. right?
And you hear it. You know, and it's easier for you to just play it because you hear it, rather than
try to bring somebody in and teach it to them.
Yeah.
But I can't do that with every part.
No.
That's what I got Peters for. Plays drums and trumpet way better than I do.
But he hears it too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but that's ultimately, you know, that's your job as producers, to make sure the album is finished and comes out. Finished. Mm-hmm. Finished. All that matters is output, right? Mm-hmm. So, if you're dealing with an artist that needs a lot of personal attention, right? Mm-hmm. I imagine that's what working with Alanis Morissette was like. That's why they cut it at, what's his name's house, right? Granted, and that's kind of how I work too. I work into the house, but, you know, those records tend to take a long time to make. It's a lot of attention to detail and things. And yeah, those tend to be bigger budget because it takes more time. So as a producer, your primary concern is, how do I make this come out? So if we only have $300, help. You go, okay, I can hire a studio for $300 for the day. Mm-hmm. Which means you have to be able to record it in a day. Mm-hmm. Which means before we hire the studio, we have to practice at your house over and over and over until it's perfect. And we just roll in, hit it, and go. Right? That's one way of producing. Otherwise, if you're really good at raising money for upcoming albums, mm-hmm. yeah, go raise the money and hire a local studio and keep a studio open for a while longer. Because they're getting harder. Those gigs are hard to find. And you'll find that if you're willing to keep a guy in steady work for quite a while, you'll get some spectacular rates. You know, when as a freelancer, among the freelancers will tell you it's only about 30% of your available time that you'll ever work. The other 70% of that needs to be spent acquiring the next work. You're constantly hunting for the gigs, and then 3 times out of 10 you get to actually do the gig.
Right.
So yeah, guys that are doing that are extremely happy to stay consistently busy, especially if the hours aren't super long and it pays the bills and covers everything. You can totally get some good rates. So if you're good at raising funds, that's one way to do it. Or if you're like me and you have a whole room, get to it. Find the vocalist, find the rapper. But I think selling beats is a bad idea. I don't think the market's that good for it. I think it's really hard to sell a beat that's going to work with a vocal and also sell, because the ones that leave no space will jump out to the ear of the guy who's buying the beat. And maybe a few guys understand that you got to find the ones that are a little more sparse, but maybe not. The market's weird.
Yeah.
But I will say this: if you're gonna try to be a music producer, you better learn how to play an instrument of some kind. Very few music producers can't play anything. Rick Rubin was a singer.
Was he?
Yeah, he was the singer for Flipper.
Okay.
So you should, but to me, I think every producer should know their way around a keyboard and a guitar. If you make your way around a keyboard and a guitar, the sky's kind of the limit. If you're a horn player, that works too. You know, it's ultimately though it's about connecting a project with a studio with an audience. The audience is the hardest part, but getting a project in a studio connected is the job of the producer. That and making sure it actually gets done. Because too many artists will just lose all the time getting hung up on minor details, and they'll lose the big picture. All right. That's about my thoughts. If you have questions, if you have music production questions, for example, I was out. I almost went around asking. I asked one guy if he had any tips on coaching vocalists, and I didn't get a response, and that's fine. But if you have those kinds of questions, leave them here in the comments. I've made, God, too many records now. I've been working at it a long time, and I've done all sorts of different kinds of records. I've done the electronic stuff, I've done the jazz stuff, I've done the pop rock, adult contemporary, all of it. So leave a comment, ask me what's going on, or tell me about the project you're working on. That's also interesting. All right, what's next? Everybody gets a trophy?
Yep.
I have no trophy.
I need to go get the trophy.
No.
This week we should use the fidget cube.
Yeah. We're gonna give Josh in the other room the Workhorse Award. He is crushing it.
Yes, he is.
Crushing it. Just.
He worked overnight, then he was here at 9 this morning, did a recording session till 2.
He played Saturday night too.
Oh, he played Saturday night too. Yep. So he's here till 2, and now he's napping till 5.
Was he here yesterday?
No, I don't think so. He wasn't.
He was here Friday.
He was here Friday.
Yeah. So he was here Friday, went to work, went home, slept, played a gig, worked, came here, recorded, slept, and now he's going to record again.
At 5, yeah.
And we're going to try to get it done fast so we can get him a couple more hours of R&R. He probably wants to go home. But then, yeah, he's got to turn around and work tonight, so yeah.
Yeah.
Brutal. That's a working musician. That you got to be willing to hustle that hard. So, to him and to you, I don't have a name. You've just been awesome this week. You've been pretty spectacularly awesome this week.
I have, huh?
yeah, you've been doing the things you need to do, and you're burying my son. That'll be cool.
I hope it'll be cool. Otherwise, we're gonna have words.
Yeah. But yeah, you just get the general awesomeness award.
Okay.
Breakfast was spectacular, by the way.
You're welcome. Um, you, not the workhorse award, but the crazy busy award.
Oh, God. Turns out I think I'm going to have a few hours off on tomorrow night.
Maybe after a gig.
I gotta work, I gotta do a gig, and then I might have a few hours off, but I'll probably build harmonies.
Yeah,
I gotta build harmonies.
Because you've been building harmonies and recording and gigging and still managing to go to the doctor's appointments with me. And
yep. This is, by the way, we didn't talk about it in the production one.
Uh-huh.
But if anybody's watching the full episode from and it is interested in production, when I say building harmonies, what I do is I take the scratch vocal, I copy paste the part that I want to make a harmony out of.
Mm-hmm.
I copy paste it 4 times. I need 4 of them, and then I make 4-part harmonies with auto tune. So I'll auto tune it the line into what it was supposed to be. I'll then take that and then move that around to create harmonies and stacks up. It's a very effective way of arranging. Beats the snot out of staff paper. God, I don't miss writing all this stuff out. Because, yeah, I was sitting there, I was like, oh, yeah, an arranger's just kind of like doing math problems. Because that's all I'm doing. I'm going, what's a chord? Okay, these notes fit. Moving on.
Yep.
And then when you finish, and that's the beginning of that process, and then when you finish the process, it explodes.
Yep.
So, on that note,